All right, let's dive into something fascinating today. We're going to tackle a question that sounds simple on the surface, but the answer, well, it might just completely change how you think about what a law even is.
So here it is, the big question. Can you take a law from, say, Germany and just drop it into the legal system of the United States? It seems like it should be straightforward, right? A simple copy-paste job. But as we're about to see, this idea sparks a massive debate about the very nature of law itself.
At the heart of this whole thing is a clash between two really powerful ways of thinking. On one side, you have the common view. Laws are basically like blueprints. They're technical, they're precise, and you can copy them and build with them anywhere. But then there's this more radical theory that laws are more like living things, like organisms, deeply rooted in their own unique cultural soil. And if you try to transplant them, they just won't survive.
Okay, so let's start with that first idea, the more popular one. It's known as the legal transplant theory, and it's built on a very simple, very intuitive foundation. The idea that law is really just a set of rules.
The main guy behind this idea is a legal scholar named Alan Watson, and he defined it about as directly as you can. For him, a legal transplant is just the moving of a rule from one country to another. That's it, simple. No hidden complexity, no cultural baggage to worry about.
In fact, Watson believed this whole process was, and this is his phrase, socially easy. He saw it as a pretty mechanical three-step process. You just identify the rule you want, you move the text, and then you implement it. Boom, done.
Now, what's really crucial to Watson's theory is everything he leaves out. You know, a country's entire history, its culture, its unique ways of thinking about problems. He basically dismissed all of that as just academic noise. For the real world, the practical world of business and commerce, Watson argued that the only thing that really matters is the written rule itself. So that's the established theory. But now we get to the big challenge. This is where legal scholar Pierre Legrand steps into the ring and argues that, actually, far from being easy, true legal transplants are fundamentally impossible. So here's Legrand's central idea. He calls it the rule-meaning distinction. And he argues that a legal rule is never just the text you read on a page. A rule is always two things. It's the text plus its meaning. And, this is the key, that meaning isn't universal. It's forged in the fire of a very specific culture.
Let's break that down a bit. So every rule has two parts. You've got the signifier. That's the physical text, the actual words on the page. You can totally copy and move that part. No problem. But then you have the signified. And that's the cultural meaning, the shared, almost unconscious understanding of what those words really mean in practice. Legrand's big claim is that this second part, the meaning, is completely locked into its home culture. You can't move it.
There's this fantastic quote from the philosopher Walter Benjamin that just nails this point. The German word brought and the French word pain, they both translate to bread. But to a German and a Frenchman, they evoke completely different histories, different social rituals, different cultural values. It's so much more than just a baked good. Legrand says the exact same thing is true for legal words.
So here's how that all works out. You can think of it like a formula. You start with your text, let's call it words A in its home country. There, it combines with the local culture, meaning X, and together they create what we'll call Rule 1. Now you take that exact same text, words A, and you move it to a new country. Well, now it's being interpreted through a totally different cultural lens, meaning Y. So what's the result? It's not Rule 1 anymore. It's a brand new creation, Rule 2.
And that's the core insight here. The complete, original rule, it never actually arrives at its destination. All that really lands in the new country is a string of words. And those words are immediately domesticated. They're given a brand new, local meaning by the host culture. So the transplant, in any real sense, has failed.
Okay, I know this might still sound a little theoretical, right? A bit abstract. But Legrand gives us a fantastic real-world case study to show how this works in practice. So let's take a look at an attempted legal transplant from France to England.
So the idea in question was this sharp legal distinction between public law, which is governing the state, and private law, which governs regular citizens. This is a totally foundational concept in the French legal system, and at a certain point, English courts tried to borrow it directly.
But here's the thing, the cultural soil couldn't have been more different. The French concept grew out of a system that had this idea of a powerful, distinct state administration and a totally different kind of judicial process, an inquisitorial one. England, with its common law tradition, had none of that. It just wasn't part of its legal DNA.
And what was the result? Was it a neat copy and paste? Not even close. Instead, importing the term created widespread debate, a ton of legal uncertainty, and ultimately a completely new and uniquely English interpretation of what public law even means. The original French rule? It never really showed up.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, Legrand's theory really forces us to shift our entire perspective, to stop looking for this superficial sameness between legal systems and instead start looking for and appreciating their profound differences.
And this quote from another great scholar, John Merriman, just sums it up perfectly. He says that focusing only on the written rules is superficial and misleading. The true character of a legal system, its deep, real dimensions, they're found somewhere else entirely, in that invisible cultural software that's running underneath it all.
And Legrand takes this a step further. He argues that the whole legal transplant idea isn't just an innocent academic mistake. He says it's a political ideology. By making legal change seem like just a simple, technical fix, it ends up promoting a world of sameness. It papers over real cultural differences, and, he argues, it conveniently serves the interests of global markets, which tend to thrive on that kind of uniformity.
So, if we really follow this line of thinking, the whole point of comparing legal systems gets flipped on its head. The goal isn't to find common ground so we can build some single, uniform global law. No. The real valuable work is to understand and map out the deep, meaningful differences that make each legal culture exactly what it is.
And this leaves us with a really crucial question for our incredibly interconnected world. As we push for more and more global standards in everything from tech to trade, are we really building on a shared foundation, or are we just pasting words over these deep cultural divides that are going to inevitably create unexpected and unpredictable results? It's a lot to think about. Thanks for tuning in.